Welcome to the Common Podcast. This is your host, Hanna. Thank you so much for watching.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Common Podcast. I am here with Annette, as usual. And we are, we're going to be talking about feminism a little more and whatever else we feel like, as always. Who would you say is your most favorite feminist in the Bible? Or, example.
Yeah. Totally. I have some notes here because I just got really excited about this topic. And the first one that comes to mind is Mary.
Okay, oh my gosh, yeah.
About Mary.
Sorry, if I make farting sounds, it's because of Mary. It's not, well, it could be me. Oh my gosh, I sing that every time I come out of the shower and I put my towel over her. And I'm always like, Mary, did you know? And now my kids do it too.
That's amazing. I was Mary in a play. In
our
church. We used to go to this smaller, super cute, Hispanic church, like a community church, where all the families know each other. I claim to fame, and that's when it started. I wanted to be an actress, so.
That's awesome.
Because I did Mary. There probably wasn't even any lines in it or anything.
Really?
Just literally. I don't think so. I mean, we were 3, I think. We just had to walk down the aisle and stand by baby Jesus,
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mary, yeah. I mean, if you grew up Christian, in a biblical sense, they were waiting for Jesus, the Savior, to come, maybe on not in that way, as a warrior, as a coming in combat,
yeah.
In armor, Jesus coming to save his people, in power, and so,
right.
So yeah, all that. I mean, as we know, he came humbly, and God used a woman, but let's go a little further. He used a woman's body, he used a woman's the womb, and so that just, a little bit. As I talked to a little bit about in the last video, I'm just really feminism when it comes to when I was my babies, how I had babies, I was able to have babies, breastfeed, Mary, breastfed Jesus, that's just, it gives me chills, that's feminism to me, the gospel. If you're listening right now and you don't know, the gospel is feminism.
Yeah.
Another one, or a couple more, Hagar.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say her.
Yeah. Well, let's stick to Mary. Just when the Easter story, Jesus dying, and then the angel came to women first and told them basically that gospel, how those are the first ears to hear the gospel message, of Jesus dying, and and how he's not dead anymore.
Yes.
We're women, and they told others. They were the first,
I
don't know, evangelist or
gospel. They were trusted with that first word.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then Hagar, was that one of yours too?
She was, when I was thinking about it, she was the second one I thought of. This particular time I was reading that story, I just was stood out to me of how amazing she was. She was Abraham's slave, basically. But we always we've always brushed over her.
Totally.
No one talks about her, but she's actually super special. And then
her own narrative there.
Yeah, and she has this little section about how she hears from God, or she doesn't see God, she hears his voice, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
She is the first woman, first person to give a God a name. So we did New Testament examples.
Yeah.
And she's Old Testament. She's
she heard from God, and she said, "You're the God who sees me." He sees.
Yeah. You're the God who sees me. Elroy. I did a little search right before this. So that's why
Yeah.
it's fresh.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought
oh
that,
boy. So that's just
and I feel like that's like a God's, obviously like a message, an obvious message that like God values women. I mean, right there, like you said, she's the first one to like give God a name and like have that type of encounter with God, and she's a woman. So it's crazy how people can read all that and still think that like still be so sexist in the church.
Yeah.
I remember reading some quotes from like Josephus and like people during that time, like their quotes on women. How have you ever heard like how horrible the like most famous men of history, and then like quoted what they think about women, basically. I remember one was like, it is worse. It's like you might as well be dead, basically. I can't remember the words, but it's like might as well be dead than to be a woman. Like it's better to be, like better not to have been born than to have been born a woman. That was like a quote from, I want to say Josephus, but it was someone during that time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just like they really didn't value women. And so you can see in that contrast, like how much they really thought being a woman was a curse because of.
Have you read this? Oh my god, I have to say this. You've read Tent?
No, I haven't. Mm-mm.
Okay.
It says,
but it's
highly recommend. Highly, I haven't read it, but highly recommend it.
This is on my bookshelf, and no, it's on my. It's not mine. It's Jeremy, and like
he's read it.
So I want to say that this is the book because because my first thought is you're talking about like, just how women were viewed in the Bible times and just kind of all throughout history. So particularly, when you're on like your period, like menstruating, you had to go to like the tent. I think that's what it's talking about.
Got it.
It's red, and just kind of. I think I want to say that it's like fictional, but it's based on
right.
a lot of things that like obviously happened, but
real
it's
things, yeah.
Novel, or something like that. Okay,
that makes sense.
For anyone who's listening has read
that
it.
Sounds really cool. That sounds really cool.
But yeah, but it's written by a woman, and yeah, maybe I will read it.
But the cool thing is like, or the big thing is like the contrast, because like if they had this view of women that like basically it's better to not have been born, or that you're like cursed just in being a woman. It's not like they're just men are better. They literally thought women were cursed. So like to be a woman was just to be essentially under a curse, to be inferior in every single way. Then to have the contrast of how Jesus like
interacted with them,
elevated them to the point of like he spoke to them, like
prayed with, yes,
because people say like, where do you find feminism in the Bible? Like it doesn't seem like they really care about women at all. It's all like the 12 disciples and they're all men, and like it's just like it's not easy to see at the surface. But if you're like thinking about, no, it's like you don't understand, like Jesus shouldn't have even talked to that woman, and he did. Like that is huge. Like these little,
also the woman hemorrhaging too, like again blood. It's dirty.
She touched him.
Yeah.
And he didn't be like, ugh, like don't ever touch me, like he didn't like condemn her and cast her out, which everyone else would have, so it's like he did so many little things that were actually really huge, that spoke a message that was like really clear to the women of that time. It was super clear. Like they would have been like, oh my gosh, he sees us like different. To us looking back, sometimes we don't see it as easily because we're looking through our lens. We don't understand how bad it was. And like you said, of like the women hearing the message first, Like the angel spoke to them and said, he is risen and all that stuff. And they went back to the disciples and they were like, the Lord is risen. No one believed them because they're women. Women were inherently wrong. They just were inherently like whatever they spoke, like legally they didn't have a voice, right? In a court of law, if a woman spoke the testimony, it was considered invalid. Like they couldn't use it because her testimony cannot be trusted. A woman cannot be trusted. So for the angels to tell the women and the women to tell the disciples, well, they're like, they don't believe them because they have the ingrained idea that women cannot be trusted and their testimony is invalid. So it's just like, you see that and you're like, oh, that's not really a big deal. No, it is like a huge deal, because why would God intentionally tell them first? You know, because he's showing like his value of women. So I think that's really I think that's a really big thing that people get hung up on, is they can't see it in the Bible, but it's because they're looking through their modern lens and not putting themselves in the time to see what it would have been like then.
Well, yeah, it's just the focus of narrative.
Yeah.
All throughout history, there's always like a focus on men. I mean, it just is, you know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about Paul, and how he like wrote to Priscilla and Aquila, yeah. And some other leaders of the church. And what do you think about Hanna, the verse that says like women shouldn't speak in church, or all those lovely Paul ones that, who is, because I bring up Paul too, because, you know, Paul is interesting. People have different opinions about Paul. And like, he does, like the examples I was just trying to give, like he like writes to different church leaders, and then some of them are like, I'm forgetting, but like, I think he goes on mission with a couple women, or he goes and meets them too, like at a church or whatever. But Paul is the kind of one of the number of reasons in his book, like one of his books, the verse that people love to just, well, women aren't supposed to speak. They're not supposed to speak, preach, or whatever that verse is. What do you think about that, Hanna?
Yeah, I'm not as prepared to answer that as I would have been like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I was like way prepared because I was like always like studying it. Yeah, and like I wrote papers on it and stuff too. And now I'm like, I don't remember now because I don't care anymore. It's just like, it's like, it is what it is. Like, you know, when you're so like, dude, that's so wrong that now you don't even care anymore. Why? It's just like, it is. It just is. But
if I need to write a 5-page paper to tell you like why it's wrong, then I don't even want to talk to you. No.
Yeah. It's like, if you don't know already, like, I don't want to, but for real though,
like off the top of your head.
Yeah. Off the top of my head. I know one of the big things, the obvious things, is context. Who was he talking to and why was he telling them that? A lot of people believe that he was talking to a church where the women were very new to the faith, where everyone was very new to the faith, maybe, but the more and more people that were brought in, the women were a lot less educated than the men, because the men are, you know, obviously able to be educated. The women of that time were not educated.
That makes sense, yeah.
So because the women of that time were so much less educated and so much more, I don't know, loud than maybe the men were, because maybe the men knew some of the etiquette better. They just had so many questions and they had so many disruptions that a lot of people say.
Disruptions? How dare they?
That a lot of people believe that this was one of the reasons why Paul said that, was because a man should teach his wife at home, as in to catch her up, because she's behind. She doesn't understand a lot of the basic things. We got to teach her that so that she can essentially catch up to where we all are talking about here, because she doesn't understand. She's going, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And it's too disruptive for the service to even continue. So that was one reason people say that he says specifically a man should teach his wife at home. And that was why. Another reason that some people say is that Paul was just a man. I mean, he's not Jesus himself. And Paul was a learning feminist. Like, Jesus was God. So, and Jesus was, I believe, fully feminist, right? But at the same time, he was wise in how he went about it, because he knew his mission and he knew he could slip in things here and there and bring people in here and there, but he also had a mission to accomplish. And I think he knew the best way to do all of those at once. But if he was to get I don't know, there's so many things you could say, why didn't Jesus do that? Why didn't Jesus stop slavery? Why didn't Jesus stop? So there's so many things that he why didn't he do all of these things? Well, he had a mission. He subtly and directly both said this and this is wrong and this is right, but he stayed on track with his mission. So it's I think he did in his humanly ability, the best he could with his amount of time he had. But then there's Paul, who is human, learning feminism from the gospel, because you see it. He probably was a man who was very sexist and is now learning to accept women because Jesus did. So he's following the example. But that doesn't mean that he's necessarily perfect at it yet, or that he knows exactly everything that's perfect way to do things. And maybe for him, that was his best idea. This is what is going to help the church. But he didn't necessarily express it completely perfectly. And maybe he didn't express it. Maybe he said something a little harsher than we would have liked to hear it. But it's, again, I think it's the times and us looking through our lens.
Harsh, yeah. I feel like Paul is...
He's known to be blunt.
It's looked at as harsh.
He's known to be very blunt, and to also just, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who say, well, that's just too much explanation and too much reading. If you have to explain it that much, then you're just digging around, But even most of Paul's words are very pro-woman. He says things that contradict himself sometimes.
I mean, the whole Bible is it's just, it's stories that you have to read, what you're saying, in context.
And he's the same one that said, there is no longer male nor female, slave nor free. For we all are all one in Christ Jesus, or something. I'm
you
pretty
can probably see maybe a flow in his work too. I have not.
And I'm pretty sure I remember studying it way back, like I said, and I think I remember laying out his contradictions of not to say the contradiction, but here he's very pro this and this, and then here he seems to be saying this against women. And I think what people have come to find is the majority of his words are very pro. There's these one or two instances of this that you're talking about, of women should be silent. And it's why would he say that? It's so random compared to the rest of his work. It doesn't really fit. But there must have been a reason. There must have been maybe something specific. That's what the only conclusion that I feel it can come to, because an important thing to know when you're reading the Bible and studying the Bible is to like, if there's like a verse that's like isolated or that's like says something bizarre and it's just like one time and it's never repeated again in the Bible where you're like, Jesus never talks about it. No one else ever talks about it. Like, it's just this one random thing. It probably doesn't mean anything. Usually it's like, if it's, if it's repeated,
I love it, Pastor Hanna. It probably doesn't.
It probably doesn't mean anything. Cause like, I mean, I learned that in Bible college of like the repeated themes are important. The repeated themes.
For sure.
The one thing that's in there randomly that doesn't, it's like,
I mean,
it probably had to do with their culture that we just don't understand. Something like
and it was written by humans, and they were saying their opinion, and they're saying their thoughts, and that's what the Bible is. Like it. Yes, it is.
There's so much
word of God. It really is. You know,
there's so much disconnect in the culture, though.
Humans.
It's like, really, what were they doing that we are like, we have I have no idea what that relates to. It probably made sense to them, but it does not make sense to me. And that's fine. I just let it go. It doesn't make sense to me. And just hold on to the things that are like consistently spoken. But anyway, so there's a couple problematic verses for sure.
Okay, well, speaking of Paul, Hanna, like, this could be one of those verses that we're just like, let's not. Let's not talk about that. But it has to do with kind of feminism, like roles, like with your partner, with like husband and wives. Like, I would say like it's kind of more of a conservative sentiment. The verse that I'm mentioning, like that I'm referring to, about like husbands, like love your wives, and like wives serve your husband. I'm sorry, I just misquoted it, but something like that.
Yeah. Well, the big thing about the Ephesians 5:1 is that.
Do you want to read it? Because I don't remember it.
It says, the one you're talking about says, it's 5:25 for husbands. Wait. No, it's 5.
I'll look it up again.
24. As the church submits to Christ, so you wives should submit to your husbands in everything.
There's that word. The word.
That
word.
Yeah, I definitely
all cringe.
I know, I always hated that. I've done a lot of reading about this passage too. And I know that like one of the big things people say is in the beginning, in 21, it says submit to one another out of reverence for Christ.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people say, he said, like, you have to follow the train of thought. He says, submit to one another. So obviously, mutually submit.
Mm-hmm.
And then wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, blah, blah, blah. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. That's 28.
Mm-hmm.
And then And then this is great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way the church and Christ are one. So I say each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect the husband.
Mm-hmm.
That one to me isn't that problematic because it's just like the word choice. But like if you just take it, like if you take, he says, husbands, you shall love your wives as you love your own bodies. So to me, it's like, that's just as intense as saying submit. You just didn't use the word submit.
That's an interesting point. Like in my commentary here, it says the grammar indicates that this is a mutual submission.
Yeah, that's a common
filling of the Holy Spirit. Yeah,
that's a common egalitarian look on it, is that it's mutual, and it's very clear that like we're both sacrificing, we're both loving, we're both submitting to it. You don't have to say submit; you could just say sacrifice and love, and that's kind of the same.
I think for people, some people can open up the Bible and read it and take it as like what it is, which is the most dangerous thing you could do.
just like point blank.
The most
Which-
complicated book there is on earth.
You can't
You know.
you can't do that with something ancient. Like it's ancient language. Ancient language. It's not this wasn't written in English. This was written in a totally different language and they had a totally different way of writing. Like where we write this way. And we're told that the Jewish people or at certain times, they wrote this way. You know, they wrote this, they wrote down, and they wrote this, as in their concepts. They would they didn't just like thought by thought go down to the next subject and to the next. They would go and loop-de-loos and come around and so we can't necessarily always follow the train of thought because that's not how they talked. They didn't talk like we do. Yeah. They talked in pictures or they talked in whatever. So it's you can't be that. I hate when people are like, what's the phrase they use? Like you said, take the Bible for what it says. I just take it for what it is.
It's so easy. Just read it and it tells you what to
read it and do it exactly what it says.
It's like a manual, I think. I don't know. I've heard weird things.
You can't do that. You can't just take it for what it says because it says so many different things to so many different people because you don't know how to read it. And anyway, for one of the big, I think as far as the submit portion, I feel like that's easily he says husbands should sacrifice like Christ and he submitted. So I just don't see any difference there. But the one thing that people do take away from that is it says for a husband is in 23, for a husband is the head of his wife as Christ is the head of the church. That's the big one that they take and they're like, well, it says it right
I knew it was something. I knew it was I knew that's what it is.
Yeah. Like point blank, it says it right there. And
the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the savior. Okay, let's talk about that then.
Okay.
Is there leadership in a marriage? This is what we should talk about. Is there leadership? Are we taking that face value? Do you have any other thoughts with that?
Yeah. For me, I've read different things about this as well. And you can always say that's just your opinion. And that's fine. You can whoever's listening to this can just say, well, that's my opinion. Whatever. I don't care. But my opinion
Put it in the comments.
My opinion, from what I understand and what I've read, is that the husband was the head of the household.
Boom.
They were. So for Paul to say, just as the husband is the head, he's talking about something that is a thing.
Literally.
Head meant they were counted in a census. If you're counting people in the country, you're going to count the heads. You're not counting all the household. You only count the heads. The head was always the man of the house. That was how they did their counting. That was how they did their censuses or whatever. They counted the heads. They counted heads. And that's where we get the counting heads. It's you counting the head of the household. So you don't have to count every single person. So the way this is said is just as the husband is the head of his wife, Christ is the head of the church. So just like the husband represents his family, Christ represents his church. Now, here we are now, and we're saying, does this mean the husband has to be the head? No, it just means he was the head.
Yeah, when they were reading it. Yeah. They were reading it back then. They're like, yes, Paul, this is what's happening. Okay, moving on.
They're like, that makes sense. That's a really good metaphor, Paul. It made sense to them. So for us to use that as prescriptive, like this is how you have to be, when it's descriptive. Like that doesn't make sense.
I like those words. Did you learn those in Bible college?
Yes.
You're so good. Well, like you do like sermon writing and all that stuff. So you kind of still, I love that.
I still
I miss that a little bit.
Yeah. But the other thing,
so descriptive. Say those 2 words again.
Yeah. So like when you look at a verse and you say it's like just as the husband is the head of the wife, and you say that is a direct word to me of how I should be, that's prescriptive. Like you're getting a prescription.
Prescribed. Okay.
From the doctor, like this is how you need to take this medicine. Okay, that's for me. No, it's descriptive. It's describing something that's happening. So that doesn't mean it's for you just because it's describing something that's happening. There's a lot of things in the Bible like that where they're just describing the event. They didn't say you have to go do that just like that. Like when Jesus healed the blind man, and he put the mud on his eyes. That was descriptive. But someone could say that's prescriptive, like, oh, that's how we're supposed to heal blind people? No.
Yeah. Interesting.
No, that's just,
we have a lot of examples like that.
It's really just good. A description of what happened. It's a story. And this is kind of the same in the sense of like, I think Paul is just describing the way things work at that time. He's saying it's like nothing. He's saying a nothing statement. Just like the man is the head of the house, so the Christ is the head. It's like common sense. And then because later he also says Christ is the head of the church. Yeah. We're the church. Like I'm the church too. Not just Joe, not just my husband. Yeah. So if I'm the church too, then Christ is my head, not my husband. Like my spiritual head. My spiritual head, he's talking about a physical, like literal, like legal head. Yeah. Just as the husband is the head of the wife. He's talking legally. Now he's talking spiritually. So Christ is the head of the church. I'm the church. So Christ is my head spiritually. Spiritually, Christ is my head. Legally, maybe my husband's my head. Or maybe he's not. Legally, that's irrelevant. Because then a lot of people will say this and they say, well, the man is the spiritual leader. That is not what Paul ever said. He said Christ is the spiritual leader of the church. He's the spiritual head. Yes. So my only spiritual head is Christ. I don't have a spiritual head besides that. Interesting. Yes. Well, I mean, that opens up conversations to like, what is exactly like, what does that mean to have a Christian household? Who leads the family? Who does? I don't even know what that means. Does that mean who prays every night at dinner? I don't even know. No, literally, like every night at dinner, and who takes? I don't even know. Like leads family discussions. I don't even know, because honestly, that's what I do. I do that. People literally mean that though. Like that's the culture I grew up in of like the man is supposed to essentially lead you spiritually. And like if you, I mean, even everything like money wise too, like I've known wives that are like, no, I have no idea what's in the bank account. My husband just like, yes, I think, somehow it is. Which is fine. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not really good at the finances. So like, I'm like, whatever works for you. Yeah. Like, honestly, whatever works for you. Like yeah. But I'm like, I'm big on just doing whatever works for you. But like, but saying you have to do that. But like, if there's trouble spiritually in the marriage, like as in, I don't know, like maybe just you guys aren't seeking the Lord at all, or I don't know, there's like unrest for some reason. The church that believes this will say like the husband is failing and he should be leading his family, should be leading his wife into that spiritual place of like intimacy with the Lord. I'm like, why is that his job? For me, like that's on me, not him. Yeah. Like that's crazy to me. But that I literally thought that when I got married, I still was in that mindset because that's how I thought, like that's what I was raised in, was like the spiritual leader of the house. And so I was spiritually lazy because I thought I just really didn't have to do anything. It's just like oh yeah, well, like my husband will do all the prayers, or he'll do all the, like, if we're going to do family devotions or something, that'll be like, he'll just do it. And I'll just,
Mhm.
like, that's his job.
Yeah.
It's just made me spiritually lazy because I'm just like, eh. But now, like, once I realized that I was a feminist and that I didn't believe any of that stuff, then I was like, oh, it's on me to, like, seek the Lord. It's on me to lead my family spiritually. It's on both of us, but it's on me too. Like, yeah, it's crazy that people actually that's why feminism is for men too, because you're putting so much on them that is not there. That is not all for, they can take part in that of being a leader, but that is not all on them.
Well, feminism equals equality.
Yeah.
Like, for it to carry, like, the yoke, whatever, again, biblical
Yes.
term,
Yeah.
the yoke, like, evenly, like, for
Yeah.
both parties, for all parties involved.
So that's
And
a
actually
benefit for
not
men.
even have, like, whatever, the women above the men either. It's just like, are both partners or whoever. I mean, if you're in a whatever, it's not, 2 women, 2 men partners, like,
Yeah.
cool. Like, so there's not somebody over one another, or like, or even the sense of just like ownership. Like, this is like, the relationship is like 2 people,
Mm-hmm.
2 people
And
working as a
it's
team.
mutual, like mutual
Mutual.
submission, mutual, I don't know, just like, it takes effort. Like, if you want to try to lead with someone, it's harder than having one leader. It's harder to, like, find
A team. A
yeah,
team, yes.
it's
Yeah.
harder to be a team and have an agreement and have, like, discussion and come to a place of, like, okay, this is what we agree on. That's harder than just someone being like,
Heck
well,
yeah.
I'm in charge, so what I say goes. Like, that's way
Heck yeah.
easier.
Then someone just like agreeing, like, okay, I'm just gonna do whatever you want me
And
to
then
do.
the wife being like, well, it's my job to be quiet, so I will just listen. And that's
And that is okay. That's the thing too. Like, go on. Then I had a thought.
no, you're good. I was just gonna say that's easier in a sense, as in, like, it's easier in a way, but it's also way, like, harder in ways of, like, obviously it's suffocating and other things. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, well, I really specifically wanted to go back to the Ephesians 6 and just like point out something because of that new term that you just taught me that was really cool about, like, not prescription but description, about right after the children obey your parents, slaves obey your masters. Like, again, was he saying don't have one? No, he was saying because that's what was going on in that time.
Right.
So, like,
and why didn't he say, like, and slaves go free? Like, he's
he just
dealing
addressed
with
was
what he
happening
had.
and like saying, yeah, if you have one, then treat them nice or whatever. Yeah, like, but again, it was for that time. Like, that's an ancient book, and so we know what that verse has, the evil that verse particularly has done in our country. Years. So just the danger of carrying it over to, like, modern times where that's not what that's intended for, or like that concept. But
right.
I was gonna say, oh, I forgot my thought. What did we just talk about?
That's okay. You could take a second to think about it. Oh, I was talking about women, marriage, submission. Oh, and the wife just having to be like, okay, whatever you say. Like,
let's talk about, so the image of a I don't even know, a lovely woman, maybe even biblical, I don't know, is like wholesome and like quiet and like polite and like, I don't know, it is mostly like it was been like pressured like as a woman. And so if you're not that, it's 2021. We've seen a lot more examples of like just bigger, not celebrities too, but like I was saying celebrity pastors, but like pastors in general, examples even in yours and mine life, like of bolder women, of like bigger personalities, of like speaking out, of passionate, but that's just like, where did, for a while, I want to say that, I don't know, that wasn't the case. Like, you had to be I don't know. In the back of my head, it's just like you're a lady. Ladies,
Yeah.
like speak out of turn. I don't know. Like,
Oh
what the
my
freak?
gosh. Yeah.
Have you? I mean, did you
I
hear
hate
that? Was it
that.
enough? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I hate that. I was always a just purposefully rebellious about that. I hated the whole quiet thing because I was just like, I love to be silly and loud, and I just was like, I don't care. But at the same time, I still do have that. Like, I repress myself. I don't know if that's the right word. But I like I do that sort of more subconsciously, but like I'm becoming more conscious of it. I just very agreeable, basically, make people not feel uncomfortable or and especially with guys, but
I mean, that could be personality. I mean, that's kind of, I think, personality for me too sometimes. But
it's both.
I just want to say it is reflect. I don't know. I think partially had to do with like the church and not seeing a ton of women representation like in that realm. So I'm like, is that because most women that are born, like if you're born, like what I'm saying, statistically is if you come out a girl, you're like more quiet. No, it had to have been some influence somewhere along in history.
I think, and it's also, there are a couple verses about that it's the same idea of the submission thing.
Yeah.
There's a verse about like a gentle and a quiet spirit.
There you go. Oh, I think like Proverbs 31 has some like.
And Proverbs 31 has some stuff in there that a lot of people take super serious.
What? I actually really like the one. I really like the part where it says like she laughs without.
Yeah, I love that one too. Yeah.
She laughs
without fear of the future.
Laughs about fear of the future. Yeah, I love that one. But
I
some
love
other
that
parts
one.
like kind of like make me puke.
Yeah, no, same.
She waits for her husband or something. Like she waits for.
She just does everything.
Yeah, and not just like Christianity, but also I think society for sure. Like you. I mean, it's just like I don't know, from the 50s. Like the women like stayed at home and looked pretty and like those like freaking those black and white like TV shows like where the wife's like vacuuming in a dress and heels and stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, the husband comes home and like sits down and smokes a cigar or something.
Yeah.
And has like
so weird.
Hot roast every night or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was I thankfully, like by the time my mom was very much a rebel against that too. So I'm definitely like a step beyond. Like I'm way more like crazy than she is. But I loved like making my parents mad when I was like, like the early teens or whatever. I would always like dance and stuff. And then my dad would be like, what are you doing? Why are you, like, why are you shaking your butt or like whatever, and I just like, I don't care. And I just like purposely do it just because I knew that it irritated them and they thought I was being inappropriate. And I think that I was just like subconsciously rebelling against that idea of like what a girl is supposed to be, or like she's supposed to be like quiet and like ladylike. I hated ladylike.
Yeah. What the hell's a ladylike?
I don't want to be one. Whatever it is.
I never really felt ladylike either. Yeah, I kind of just. I mean, like
I hate it.
Farted. Like
I hate it. Yeah.
As a preteen, I would wear kind of like just kind of more baggier clothes, and I'm like,
to me, it's like
not. I don't know.
To me, it's like dishonest. Like that's part of why I hate it. It's dishonest. Yeah. It's not genuine. It's not like. Yeah. That's not who. I'm supposed to hide like my burp. Why? Yeah. For why? That's right. Like I burp. Like I don't need to hide
because, it. Like you're a girl. Like literally because. Like you were born with a certain anatomy. Like that's just like.
It's so weird. So I'm kind of bad at it. Like I'm having to like backpedal because I'm like, I don't teach my kids anything. Like when you say excuse me and things like that. What is that called?
Manners.
I'm really bad at manners because I just don't care. And so I'm just like, whatever. Like if they fart or something, I'm always like, wow, you stink. But like, we don't, like, there's no like, oh, excuse me. Like there's none of that. But other people have taught them, like their nana, or like, you know, like other people teach them, and then they teach me. Like they'll be like, Mom, say excuse me. And I'm like, like, who taught you that?
Excuse me for my bodily. This is my body. Things are
Like,
coming out of my body. It's natural.
I'm
it's
not
normal.
sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm like having to backpedal a little bit. Like I should teach them a little bit of manners just for the public. But yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, that's so weird.
Even the well, because we're talking about like when we were young and how was kind of, it sounds like we both like, I don't know, it didn't feel right in our skin being whatever ladylike or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think as I've gotten older, I've pushed into more of my feminine
Yeah.
like, personality, but not because like I feel like I'm forced to, not because I feel like I have to, but just I feel like comfortable being me. And I think that's, again, we've talked about like true feminism, like who are you, like be you, you know. And so I feel like literally I'm gonna turn 36 in a couple weeks, and I'm like, I feel like comfortable showing like a little cleavage. And like I hated like tank tops. Like I would see girls wearing like spaghetti strap tops, like even in my house. My mom, she was like, you're wearing a big t-shirt like in the summer, you look hot, like go put it like physically hot, like you look like. I'm like, I don't like, I'm comfortable in like a bigger t-shirt or whatever, and for whatever reason it is, I'm not sure. I mean yeah, I think I've always been like confident, but there's something about like my body that I appreciate. Like that's really feminist to me too. Again, like the language about your body, loving your hairy legs, you know, loving your like arm fat, whatever. That like I like I bought like just tops I've never worn before, like spaghetti strap, which I would have been like appalled, like, no, this tiny little whatever. And just things like you pick apart because you're just like, not there. It's okay. Like whoever's listening, if you're whatever you want to wear that makes you feel the best, you know. But it's just interesting, and I'm really glad to be at that point. Like I'm like almost 36, wearing whatever I want. I think it started, I bought like some short shorts in the summertime, like a couple of summers ago, and I was like, oh, they like hugged my butt and just like,
I
felt good.
Yeah.
They were comfy though. They weren't like too tight or things where I felt, again, uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah.
I
love that. I feel like I've experienced that a little bit in a similar way of as getting older, and like, I mean, it's not just getting older, but like it was really connected to like being feminist. And whereas before I was feminist, I was a little bit more like, not with so much dressing like sexy or whatever, because I kind of always liked to do that. Even though I always liked it. I didn't really do it often though, but it was more having to do with like just being happy being a woman. Like I just was always just kind of like meh about it. Like it is, that's like girls or whatever.
Like women, you didn't celebrate it. It wasn't something to be like.
It was just sort of like women. I wouldn't even like saying women. I like saying girls. Even the word woman was like uncomfortable to me. And just like a way of like, just seems boring. And then
just seems boring.
Yeah, it just seemed, because I've just had so many negative views.
Boring.
I had so many negative views of like women growing up.
Like
that,
what? Okay, tell me. I think we may have talked about it.
I've talked about it before, but just like of just how I saw them as just being like lame, and like people just feeding that idea that like boys are more fun and more just like funny, literally funny, and girls are like serious and like drama and like catty and annoying. And
totally,
it just seemed, that all seems so dumb to me, and I didn't really like it. And so the whole masculine side of me, I just was more like happy with, but I didn't, but the feminine was also like fine. I just was more like, I didn't value it, I guess. What really changed it for me was when I became a feminist and I began to actually value like being a woman. And then, but the reason being that, the reason being that, that I didn't have to be like this woman or that, like that woman didn't mean something outside of me. Like, like a concept that was outside of me, but that I was,
it's you,
woman. Yeah. So like whatever I am,
every woman,
whatever I am is woman, because I am. So like I don't have to live up. I don't have to live up to anything, because like if I want to be super feminine, that's great. If I want to be masculine, that's great too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect who you are or who you identify as. All those things are just ways to like maybe express yourself, or like to weigh your personality or whatever. Like it could be lots of different things, but it doesn't affect your identity as in who you see yourself as, or who you identify as. And to me, I identify as woman, so I can be whatever I want and still be a woman.
Yes. And it's like, and it frees other people to do the same. Like it frees, like, again, this whole concept of like, you be you. And like, and it's like, that's so freeing, because nobody is the same, and nobody's like the same model, the same. Everybody should be free to be who they are, and like, and just inspire that, like, for everybody else. Like, feminism.
Just like broadening the box, like, or getting rid of the box, because, but you're broadening it to the point of like, I don't believe that like this is woman and this is man. You know, I believe that it, like there's this spectrum, and that wherever you fall on that line, or whatever you fall in the box, or however you want to say it, it's just like, it's all good. Like it's so much bigger than you think. It's so much more complex and diverse than you think. So I'm all about making that room for like, you can
opening, what'd you say? Making space for all. Really. I get inspired by different types of women, and that like, again, this whole conversation, like, it's just inspiring you to be yourself. So it's not necessarily that like I want to be like someone, like, again, like the box, like the cookie cutter, but it's like you doing you doing you doing you. Do that like, that totally like inspires me to do me today.
Right. Because like if that person does them and that person does them, then like I can do me. And like, but if everyone's trying to be this, like, whatever, like this one thing, everyone is inadequate. Everyone's striving for that model of like how to be this.
Did you ever have Charles Lee as your professor? Okay. So he has this thing like, I think he still has a business or like a nonprofit or whatever, but he's like super deep, right? He's like conceptual, and he's like, maybe what you're looking for out there is not even there yet, because you haven't even made it up yet. You know? So it's like, I mean, that's kind of a different concept, but it's the same thing of like, stop maybe like looking for someone to be like, and just be you, or like looking business wise, obviously, like model wise, like, oh, maybe it's like this product or that product. No, maybe it's not even made up, and it's like right here, baby, you know, like, so that's kind of, I mean, it's the same kind of concept.
I just, last thing, I think one of my main biblical examples, because like back to the beginning of what we were talking about, in a lot of ways it was like Eve that really brought me into feminism. Because just reading it in the light of she was 100% just her, like, you know, like Eve was created and it doesn't say she did or didn't do anything. It just says like, and they, you know, they were told to like basically like lead together, to paraphrase it, like from my own words. Adam and Eve were told to lead together, to like rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the air. Like they were supposed to like rule together or lead together. And to me, it was like this perfect picture of like what marriage was supposed to look like what like what the woman and a man or whatever was like supposed to like kind of be, was like this equality that I saw Adam and Eve as like this equality was there that was never seen again, basically. Like you never see it again. It's just this perfect equality. And she was, I'm sure she didn't shave, you know, I'm sure she was 100% herself and didn't care, you know, like I just have a picture of her like
carefree,
carefree, like just beautiful but unconcerned with being beautiful, just living. And I see like running through the jungle or like running through the woods or like just like totally uninhibited.
I love it. I feel like you're connecting with Eve right now. I didn't know that so deeply.
Yeah, and so and it's just like, and she just was like climbing rocks, like jumping into rivers, like just totally free. And to me, I was like, why would I want to be anything else than that? Like, why would I want to be any other description of woman than one that's like completely free?
Yeah.
And why would I want a relationship with my husband to be anything but what they had? Because what they had was dope. I think that's like the dream.
That's so good. Maybe thought about Eve like a little bit, but that's really cool.
So anyway, it's super late. We're like both falling asleep.
Excuse us for yawning. It's like the new year and we need to wake up.
If you saw us yawn a few times late at night. So thank you everyone for just joining us, for tuning in. It just means a lot to have anybody listen to us at all. It's awesome. And that's cool. So definitely just follow us on Instagram and like and subscribe
and comment.
And
what you would want us to talk about.
We will take, you know, a request or whatever. Like if you have an idea, shoot it. We'd love to hear it. So cool. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.